Hey guys, it's Ep.80 with Llama Life. Thanks for joining us on another episode today. So we're going to jump into one of my favorite topics of all time, hunting elk in the backcountry, and how to plan for one of those hunts and all the logistics that are involved with that. So we're going to kind of just dive into it and hopefully help you guys out. And the reason why I decided to do this video today is it's March time. A lot of planning and prepping is going into the fall season and the summer season for people, residents and non-residents, coming to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, places like that to hunt. And so one of the things that we do all the time is help people plan out their logistics. So people call, they got a tag, they and three of their friends are coming out, and they're going to hunt here in Idaho locally, archery elk. Very common thing that we get a request for, and they need llamas. And so they say, okay, we want some llamas for these dates. And I say, okay, great. This area we're going to go to, great. And then they'll ask something like, where do you think we should go within that area? or they'll ask me, what do I know about the area? Which is great. These people are always asking these questions, trying to hone in all the details for their hunt. And so it's really important for us to be able to know those things. And we can speak from experience and also the experience that other hunters have within the area using our animals. And so typically in the area surrounding where we live, we have a pretty good knowledge of the animals and the herds and what they're doing, what the winter ranges look like, local fires and different landslides that affect the hunting. And there's a lot that goes into logistics. And so being able to call someone that is close to the area that you want to hunt or knows a lot about it is really, really helpful. And it's going to give you unbiased opinion. Which biologists do also a great job of. So the things that we want to focus on is now that you want to go out hunting and you kind of have a general idea of what you're going to go do, is how to pull that off and to do it in the best way possible, coming from out of state typically. So here we go, another episode of Llama Life. Thanks for tuning in. So the biggest thing I think people need to ask themselves is, where do they want to go? And so you got to take this big, huge globe of areas you can go, and you got to narrow it down. Do we want to go to Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah? And you have to decide, okay, do we want to go on a limited entry type hunt and just go, when we draw these tags, or do we want to go over the counter? So deciding where you want to go and, actually when you want to hunt elk is really important. And so once you've decided, okay, I want to hunt over the counter unit, well, one of the best places to do that is Idaho. Or I want to hunt, a general type season unit. Well, typically one every 2 to 3 years, you can do that in Wyoming. And Montana, that varies quite a bit. Sometimes you can do it every year. And depending on the trends of hunting, sometimes in Montana you can hunt elk every 2 to 3 years. So anyway, we're in that trend now where you're probably going to get a tag one every 3 years in Montana. And in Idaho, you can usually get a tag every single year. In Wyoming, we're in a trend where it looks like 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 years you're going to get a tag. And so now you kind of depict that. There's your over-counter stuff, and then you have all the big, awesome controlled draw hunts in other states. And those are totally unpredictable sometimes. Sometimes they're a little bit more predictable, but you never know when you're going to draw one of those tags. And my advice to people is to get out there and hunt. And life's going to pass you by, and if you wait 20 years to draw an incredible tag down in Utah to hunt elk, you've not wasted, but you have spent 19 years not hunting elk at all. So you don't know much about elk. You don't really know much about their habitat. You don't know where they spend their time in the winter and the summer and the fall and the spring and their habits. You just aren't familiar with elk. And so when the time comes for you to go on one of those hunts, it's just extremely stressful, and you're having to learn as much as you can about elk in a short amount of time in a premium unit. And a lot of people just get really frustrated. And so my advice is pick your states that you want to hunt elk in as a controlled area. And then as you can afford and have time and energy, go out and hunt elk as much as possible. It's a wonderful experience, life-changing opportunities out there for people, and it's mixed for a great life. And so I say hunt elk as much as possible. So if you're going to be one of those people that tries to hunt elk as much as possible, it's logistically can be challenging, and that's kind of what I want to focus on today, is the challenges that you face logistically to be able to pull that off. Now that you have the time, you save away some money, and you're ready to go out hunting every year or every other year. Hunting. Sorry, I'm from Idaho. So Where are you going to go? Let's just say you're going to go to Idaho and you're going to hunt a general season archery tag, because that's probably the most frequent request that we get. And so there's lots of different units. And I would tell people is there's different units, different topography, different quantities of elk. It's really important that you find a place that you feel you can be successful. If you're going to go to a place like, for example, Unit 27 in Idaho, the Frank Church, to archery hunt, you're going to be hard pressed to find elk, locate elk, and to get on those elk, regardless of what kind of shape you're in. It's very difficult to do. If you're going to go hunt someplace, for example, like Diamond Creek, does not have grizzlies. There's probably a few rolling around, but there's a few known grizzlies, so that helps out a lot of non-residents ease into a unit. And there's a lot of elk, and there's a cap tag, so there's always the same number of hunters in that unit. So that's nice. There's not huge fluctuations, but it also makes it difficult to get one of those tags. And the topography is not really that tough in comparison to a place like the Frank Church Wilderness. And so kind of selecting that, but the Frank Church Wilderness has an immense amount of solitude and vast country to be able to go and hike and look, and it's quite the adventure. And so deciding where you're going to go is really important. And going into the Frank Church and then hunting the Diamond Creek Zone in Idaho are two totally different hunts. You got to fly in, pack in, grueling hunt, and then you have a drive to trailhead location type hunt. And you can also do a lot of day hikes. Day hiking the Frank Church, I don't even know if that's really possible because of the drive times and where you have to go to be able to find out. So deciding where you're going to go is huge. And then when you're deciding where to go, I think it's really important just to say, this is how much time I have. This is the light type of country that I'm comfortable hiking and hunting in. I like to glass, or I want to hunt the thick timber, or whatever. You got to kind of decide that. And you can say, if I'm going to hunt the thick timber, because I think that's the style that I want to try out first, or I'm better at, or I feel like I could be more successful, or I've done more reading on, then that's where you should go. You don't want to go to a place like the Beaverheads where it's very open, has big open parks and areas with small stretches of timber and strips of timber, and has a lot of open sagebrush and hillsides. That's not a place for you if you want to be in the timber. So deciding where you want to go is really important. And once you've decided where you can go, deciding when. And that season dates kind of dictate when you can go. If you're going to go archery hunting in Idaho, which is one of the best opportunities for over-encounter tag, you have to kind of start narrowing it down of, well, which one of these many, many units now do I want to hunt? And when within the month do I want to hunt? And predominantly, people rent our llamas from the 14th of September until the 22nd of September. That is the time that I can tell you in the mountains in archery season in eastern Idaho, pretty much throughout all the state, including Wyoming, Montana. That's when all the people are out hunting archery. That's when the most gas stations are selling their ice and all their food. That's when the llamas are out there working the most, the 14th to the 22nd of September. And the reason for that is typically the elk are bugling the most, and the estrus cycle has fully begun. Typically, I usually see females or cows being bred around the 16th. Usually, that's kind of the first time frame where I've seen cows being bred in the past. So everyone wants to be there for that, which I totally understand. But you got to understand when you're deciding when you want to go on your hunt, there's factors to consider such as weather, as pressure when other hunters are going to be there, and then the elk are going to be different. And so many people that I know are very successful hunting elk the beginning parts of September, the last few days of August. And the reason that is the bulls are typically still by themselves in their summer range. And if you can find them in that, you have less elk to deal with, you have less eyes looking at you, watching you coming in, and the elk are a little more predictable. And so you got to decide when you want to go hunt. And the same falls for an October hunt and a November hunt and a December hunt. You're deciding when you're going to go. Am I going to hunt in the spring, in September in the rut? Am I going to hunt in October? Or am I going to swoop around and try to hunt late season? And so when you want to go is going to give you a different type of hunt, different adventure, but also is going to have different logistics with that. In September, one thing that I would say that non-residents commonly forget is the heat. So once you harvest an elk, the time you have to get it out before the meat spoils. And typically, you're not going to find that elk immediately. It's going to take some time. You're going to let the elk expire if you've shot it with the archery tackle, and the heat's going to start taking its toll on the animal. And so you got to be really, really conscientious of that. And so one of the ways to think about that is having a group of people with you on that hunt so you can get that elk out properly, or contacting an outfitter so they can come in and do a game retrieval for you, or renting llamas. So thinking about that ahead of time is really, really important. And also, one of the last logistics about hunting in September or October, whenever, is guys that come out here and hunt, typically it's a 5, 7, or 10-day hunt. That's typically what we see as far as people renting llamas. And if you are hunting 5 days, it seems like it takes a couple days to get your feet wet, to become familiar with the area you've hunted, whether you've scouted or whether you hadn't. And then by day 3, you're really hoping to have something tagged, because day 4 and 5 are going to be spent hauling the game out. And so when you're thinking about that, how many people do you think, if you've got 4 people with you, are going to harvest the elk on the 3rd or 4th day? And so it's really hard to put all that pressure on those days, and hopefully maybe get lucky early on. But regardless, once you have an animal down, the time and effort it requires to get it out is immense. And so considering that beforehand is really, really important, and is also a good ethic play in my rule book. And so I would highly consider that. One thing that I would tell you is that having livestock, especially something like a llama, helps you a great deal, because if you're going to harvest an animal and want to hunt the full 5 days or 7 or 10 days, it allows you those last couple of days to really give it all you have, and to hunt with the intention of being successful, because you know that if you harvest an animal on the afternoon of the 5th day, that you can process the animal, the elk, put it on your llamas, and then come out in one trip if you have enough llamas. And that's a really important factor. And so when you're sitting there considering when I'm going to go, where I'm going to go, and then once I'm successful, how am I going to maneuver all those logistics of getting an animal out of the backcountry, it's really important to think about all that and even chart it down. It's like, well, this is how it's going to play out. So last few things here. So if you have any questions about hunting the backcountry with elk, give me a call. We help hundreds of people every year get into the backcountry, and talking through the logistics, answering all your questions about gear, equipment, what we have that works, what we have that used that doesn't work. They're all great questions. So reach out to us if you're having any hang-ups about anything, about where to go, when to go, how to do it. We rent trailers, we rent trucks, all the gear and equipment. We rent out llamas. If you need tents, if you need backpacks, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, cooking gear, utensils, all that stuff. Camp chairs, stoves, wall tents. We rent it all. So if you guys have a need for any of that, give us a call and we'll help you out. We have ultralight setups, medium weight setups, and then heavy duty base camp setups. So go check out our website. All of our gear and rental equipment is online at wildernsridgetrailllamas.com. And just so you know, we love what we do, and we love working with great people. And the backcountry is something we're very passionate about. Public lands, both the backcountry, front country, and all the watersheds around are vital to my livelihood and the success of what we do as a business. But it's part of who we are, and we want more people out there protecting our public lands. And there's lots of bills being passed around now to the legislature, and it's important that everyone take part in protecting our public lands and voices their opinions. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is a wonderful group to be a member of, so I recommend becoming a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers if you're not already. They're doing some great things for us here in Idaho to try to keep access to our public lands, and if that goes away, well, llama business goes away, hunting elk goes away, all this stuff can go away, and it's a real thing. And I don't think people realize that constantly that door comes to your home of, hey, these public lands are going to be taken away someday, or can. And so you got to join the fight, help us preserve public land for as long as we possibly can, and hopefully indefinitely. So it's great for people coming out west and exploring these wonderful areas, and I want people to be able to do that forever. And hope that we can help you in that adventure, and that your family and your family's family and the generations to come can be able to do that. And so we need your support. If you're not a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, please become a member. And again, if you're coming out west and have questions about logistics of hunting the backcountry with or without llamas, need geared equipment or whether you don't, but just have general questions, please just reach out to us. We'd love to help you out in any way we possibly can. You can go to our website for our contact information. And the last little pro tip that I want to send out there is one thing I've noticed that people that come out west, or people that move out here, or people that have been hunting for 5 years in the same place, that are struggling to find and kill elk, it's because I think predominantly there's one thing that people just kind of do all the same thing all the time, and that's if they're not in elk, they hope that they're going to just one day appear, or if they're in a few elk and they're having hard times getting on them, or they chase them away, or they spook them, or the elk smell you. It's really important that if you're not seeing elk and in elk every single day, to not be too patient. Don't wait too long, and so be where the elk are. And I guess if you can't, the takeaway is if you're not harvesting elk, then you're not in an area that has enough elk. And until you learn a lot about elk, their habitat, and watching them, spending time with them. I spent 4 months at one time in the backcountry learning everything I possibly could about elk, from June until end of October, and it was an incredible experience. And so what I learned was elk have these different habits, and they do different things, and you have to be where elk are if you want to be successful. And so I would say do everything you can to be where elk are, and I think you'll be successful. And if you're not where elk are, then don't keep beating those bushes for too long before you try to move and find another location where elk are. So be where they are, and you'll hopefully harvest some elk in the years to come. So thanks for checking out the channel. Hopefully this helps you out a little bit. And really, we just want you to give us a call if we can help you out in any way, and get out there and enjoy the backcountry and join backcountry hunters and anglers. We'll see you on the next episode of Llama Life.